Okay, hello everybody. This unit is about crime and punishment. So normally I would tell you what information you have to prepare for at the end of the unit in the note-taking section. Since this unit is no longer in your textbook, I'm going to lay it out here in this little short PPT, and then I'll upload this PPT to the CTL so that you can download it later and use this when you prepare for your quiz number 2 and your final exam. Okay, so Crime and Punishment is the title, and the subtitle says what crimes exist and what is the proper punishment. So in this unit, what we'll be wanting to do is describe types of crimes, particularly that occur in Korea, and then what are the proper punishments for those crimes. Okay, so I'm going to explain that more in detail as we go on here. Okay, so you'll need to be able to describe crimes that occur, be able to choose the appropriate punishment, meaning which is the correct punishment based on the crime, express your opinion about that crime and the punishment, and then describe a criminal's appearance. Okay, so these 4 things are the focus for this particular unit and what you'd want to be able to prepare for when you do your final exam interview, along with the other units that we covered in the book. Okay, so first, in order to be able to discuss and talk about this topic, we want to make sure you understand some of the basic terminology here. Okay, so first of all, what is a crime? A crime is simply to break the law. So if you're breaking the law, you're doing some kind of illegal act, and that requires a punishment by the government. Now, like in Korea, in America, we have what is known as a judicial system. And I'm gonna type that in here, judicial. System. Now, you don't need to know this for your quiz or for the interview, but I'm just going to add this in here just so you understand. So in a judicial system, okay, a person is considered innocent until proven guilty. Okay, and what that means is that if somebody says that a person committed a crime, they have to prove that they committed the crime, and it has to be taken into a court of law, and then a jury and a judge will have to decide if that person actually did that crime, and if so, then they're found guilty. And then if they didn't do it, or if they found that they didn't do it, then they're innocent. Okay, so this is what we call the judicial system or judicial process. So we have it in America, and from what I've heard in Korea, you have a similar or almost the same system. Okay, so next you have what's called a criminal. Anyone involved in breaking the law or committing a criminal offense or criminal act. Okay, so that's a criminal. So somebody basically who does something bad or illegal can be considered a criminal, at least at that time, or for somebody who has committed many crimes and ends up in jail or prison, then they're definitely a criminal. Okay, if somebody does a small crime, like maybe they did what's called jaywalking, which means walking across the street illegally, then that is a crime, but that doesn't necessarily make them a criminal. Okay, so depending on how serious the crime is, they may or not be considered a criminal. Okay, and then next we have a victim. So a victim is a person that is affected by what a criminal has done. So example, if a criminal, like let's say a thief, steals money or steals your wallet from you, then you, the person who had their wallet or money stolen, is considered the victim. Okay, they're the one who is affected by what happened. So whether that's stealing or robbing or getting hit by someone, many different ways, they will be considered a victim. Okay, and then finally, when a crime occurs, usually a police officer will want to investigate and find out what happened related to the crime. So we have what's called a witness or eyewitness, a person who sees a crime committed and reports it to the police. So usually the police officer is going to check and see who happened to see the crime. And that person who sees the crime is called an eyewitness. Okay, and then they can do a report and ask them questions and then find out information. Okay, so probably in our next meeting, I would want you to be able to report a crime and explain or describe the crime and then what the criminal looks like, for example. Okay, so first, in order to be able to do that, you'll need to know different kinds of crimes. So now I listed here some examples, and normally when we meet face to face in a class, I usually go over this with students and then have them give some examples, and I give some examples, and we kind of check and compare different kind of crimes. But because of the lack of meeting face to face and the amount of time we have left in the semester, this is easier if I just show you some examples. Okay. And I'm going to explain some of them as well, because you may not know all of these. For example, hit and run. Hit and run is an example of a crime where maybe somebody is walking down the street and a car hits them, and then the person in the car doesn't stop and check and make sure they're okay. Instead, they just drive away quickly. Okay, this is called hit and run. We have fraud or defamation. Now, in fraudulent cases, people lie or deceive in order to get money from other people. So you'll see like examples where they're selling an item and they say it does this or that, but it ends up being fake. But they paid a lot of money for this item and find out later that it's fake. In this case, that would be an example of fraud. Okay, defamation, when people say wrongful or misinformation, they lie about another person, which causes that person to be harmed or affected, so that like they cannot keep their job or they lose money, all these kind of things. That's called defamation. Okay, now in these examples here, we have examples of crime that some are very big and terrible crimes, and then some are small crimes. So we have varying types of crimes here. Okay, we got gambling, sexual assault, breaking and entering, drug abuse, DWI. Now, DWI means driving while intoxicated. That means that somebody is drinking alcohol and then driving. Okay. We have the organ trade, where people sell illegal parts of the human organs, like the heart or lungs or kidneys or liver, these kind of things. You got voice phishing, voyeurism, where they use a hidden camera. Bullying. In Korea, you have what's called like, well, you have cases where somebody is like wangta, and then the other kids pick on them, or even adults pick on a person, or even physically harm them. We've got child abuse, a pickpocket, somebody who steals from your pocket, panhandler, cyberbullying, bribery, smuggling, larceny, prostitution, public urination, crank calling, dine and dash, animal abuse. Now, dine and dash is where you you go to a restaurant and you eat the food, and then you don't have money or you don't want to pay, and then you quickly leave the restaurant and never pay. You got animal abuse, serial murder, kidnapping, desertion, counterfeit, seizure, contempt, and GTA. Now, GTA is known as Grand Theft Auto. That's what the GTA stands for. What that means is people who steal cars, especially expensive, like sports cars, luxury cars, they steal them and then try to sell them. Okay, so it's called Grand Theft Auto. So these are some examples of crimes. Now, I didn't put it here, but we also have what's called murder, of course. Murder is a big one. And there's many different kinds of murder. Okay, so I think what I'll do is on the whiteboard, I can write down some examples. So here, let me clear off this, and then let's go to the whiteboard. Okay, because murder is certainly a big crime. Okay, and then when people commit murder, there's different ways they might do that. So obviously, when we commit murder, that means we kill someone. Okay, but how can they kill them? Well, one might be to strangle, where they put their hands around somebody's neck and then choke them. Okay, some may use a gun, so they shoot. In some cases, they may use poison to kill someone. Stabbing. They might use a knife or some kind of sharp weapon and then poke them in the body, stab them to kill them. Okay. And there's probably many more, but these are some of the common ones. So you just want to make sure you understand what murder is and be able to give an example of murder. Okay. So those are some typical examples of murder. Of course, there's other cases too where, there's many different ways to kill somebody. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is show you. Now, on the PPT that I was showing you here, this is all the information you need to start off with understanding what is going on in this unit about crime, okay? And as I mentioned before, I'm going to upload this one to the CTL. All right, now I almost forgot to mention this one because this is just as important. Okay, so we know about crimes and examples of crimes. We know we have a criminal, a person who commits a crime, and we have a victim who gets hurt or affected by the criminal, and we have an eyewitness who can report about what they saw as far as what the crime was. Okay, so that's the basic about crime. But now we also have what's called punishment, and there's two forms of punishment that I want you guys to remember. One being capital punishment, and the second being corporal punishment. And I'm going to show you some examples through pictures in just a little bit. First, let me explain. Capital punishment, which also can be known as the death penalty or execution. Okay, using the death penalty to punish a criminal for a major crime. So if it's a really big crime, for example, let's say it was murder, maybe they shot somebody with a gun and they murdered a person, this could be considered a major crime. And in America, in some states, the person could get what's called the death penalty. And that means that the criminal could be killed by the law, okay? So that's capital punishment. And I'll show you examples of capital punishment in just a short minute. Second, we have corporal punishment. Right now, corporal punishment is a form of punishment, but in this case, the criminal does not get killed or the person is not killed. Okay, but here it describes it as the use of physical and or mental stress as a form of punishment. So that means that we punish the criminal, not killing them, but using something to hit them physically, using something that affects them mentally. Okay, and I'm going to show you examples of that as well. Okay, so these are for the major types of crimes. Now, there's also a possibility of these kinds of punishments, so other forms of punishment. One would be a sentencing. Now, sentencing is where in a court, by the judicial system that I mentioned earlier, the judge and jury will sometimes sentence the criminal to time in jail, or if it's really big, prison time. Okay, and so that means that they could be in jail or prison for a certain amount of time. Usually in a jail, it's a short amount of time, like maybe 1 week or 1 day or 30 days, maybe a few months. Maximum would be up to a year. But in a prison, which is much bigger, they could have, from 1 year to 5 years to 20 years to lifetime, meaning they could stay in prison forever. So based on the amount of years or time they have to stay in, this is called a sentencing, okay? Next, we have pay a fine. And pay a fine simply means that they have to pay money based on how serious the crime was. So, it could be as small as $100 or as much as $1,000 or $10,000 or $50,000, really depending on how serious the crime is. And in some cases, if they pay the money, then they can get out of jail. or they can have to not have to stay in jail for a long period of time. And then third, we have do community service. And then doing community service means that they would have to do some work, like physical work or service work, helping other people, and do that in order to compensate or make up for the crime that they did. Okay, so sometimes that means they might clean the streets, they might work in a grocery store, something like that. Okay, so this would be community service. So these would be some other forms of punishment that they could receive if they didn't get capital punishment or corporal punishment. Okay, so let's do this. I want to show you some examples so you can understand better. Okay, now here, let me show you some examples first. Now, what you're seeing here is what the unit looked like in your textbook before, because it's no longer in the textbook, but it used to be Unit 10, and it was called crime. Okay, so I'm going to go over this in a moment, but let me show you some pictures first, so you can have a better understanding. Okay, so you'll see here all these different pictures. These would be examples of capital punishment, okay, or execution, or the death penalty. And in America, we do use some of these methods of punishment depending on the crime. So let me just show you. So example, here we have lethal injection. Okay, this one right here, lethal injection. So this is a form of punishment that we do use in some states in America. Okay, here they're showing the electric chair, and some states use this. Over here we have the using gas. Usually it's called a gas chamber, and we do this in some states in America as well. Okay, but the other examples that you see here, where they do some kind of capital punishment, we no longer do in America or have never done. Okay, and I think similar in Korea. For example, I think in Korea you used to do hangings. This one right here, I think. And I was told that these days you could still do a hanging, but nobody has done it. Like it's almost been abolished as a form of capital punishment, but that it's possible to do. Okay, now let me show you another example. Hold on, let me clear this off and then show you this one. Okay, this is probably a little bit easier to see and a little bit more clear. Okay, so you've got lethal injection, where they inject you with needle and it has poison in it. As I recall, they inject like 4 different poisons into your body. And then very peacefully, very quietly, you would die from this poison. Okay. Electrocution, or the electric chair. Okay. Some of you may have seen in movies where they use this form of capital punishment. And then you have the gas chamber down here. Okay, so in this case, a poisonous gas is emitted into the room, and the person slowly dies from the poison. It's also very quiet and peaceful compared to, say, like the electric chair. Okay, now hangings used to occur in the old days of America, but not anymore. And like in Mexico, firing squads, I think they still do it even now in Mexico. But in America, I think in the old West, there used to be a firing squad, but not anymore, not these days. Okay. Now these are all examples of capital punishment. Okay. So the ones that you should know are lethal injection, electrocution, the gas chamber. Okay. Those 3 are the most important ones to remember. Okay, because those are the ones that we might typically do in America, depending on which state you're in. For example, in New York State, they used to do the electric chair, but they stopped it. And in Florida, they still use the electric chair. And I think in Texas, they use the gas chamber. So some states are different. And then some states do not use capital punishment at all. Because each state has their own rules and laws as to what kind of punishment they give. Okay, so these are all examples of capital punishment, but now also we have what's called corporal punishment. So here's an example. So you'll see, like, lots of times in school, your teacher might have used a stick, which we call a switch. So the switch that they use, they might hit your hands, or they might hit your legs or your feet, or sometimes even the buttocks. They're behind. And this is one typical form of corporal punishment. Okay, here's another example. So here the teacher's using the switch and hitting their hand, right? Okay, so this would be also corporal punishment. And then look at these guys. So they're not really being physically harmed, but it is a physical punishment because they have to keep their arms up. They have to hold a heavy object, in this case, rocks, and they have to do it while in kneeling position, while they're sitting on their knees. So if you look at their faces, none of them look like they're in pain. Some of them are even smiling, but they know that they did something wrong, and it's a physical act that they're doing. So this is an example of corporal punishment. Okay. Now, in some countries, they do things like pour water on a person's face, maybe have them walk on glass, broken glass, all these kind of things. And in some cases, they just mentally affect them by asking them many, many questions, or maybe having them sit in a room all alone for hours or days, give them little to or no food. This is all called corporal punishment. Okay, so make sure you remember capital punishment and corporal punishment, and then other methods of punishment, like having to pay a fine, or being sentenced to time in jail or prison, or having to do community service. Okay, so these are the kinds of punishment that I want you to remember. Okay, now the next thing, first I'll show you this picture. So when we identify a criminal, if a criminal is arrested by a police officer, they will take them to the police station, and then they'll take a picture of them. Okay, now this is just an example to show you what it might look like. So here you have a silhouette of a man and a silhouette of a woman, and behind them you see these lines, these horizontal lines. Now these lines have numbers, and what I'll do is I'll kind of zoom in a little bit, but this picture is not that high quality. I couldn't find one that was higher quality, but at the very top it says 180. Now what that means, here I'm going to type that up for you. Okay, put that right here, 180 centimeters. Okay, so it's 180 centimeters is what that top line is. Okay, which indicates, well, what do you think? It indicates the person's height, or how tall they are. Okay, so if you're 180 centimeters, that's a fairly tall. Whereas this person on the left, the silhouette of the man, he's about 175 centimeters tall, so maybe like average height. Okay, so we can get an idea or guess their height, but when we use this line system with the numbers behind it, then we know specifically what their height is. Okay, or at least we have a better idea of the person's height. Okay, so let me show you another example. Okay, so in this case, you see the picture of the criminal, or the person who might be considered a criminal. So you see the front view. Here, let me type that in as well. Okay, you've got front view. And the profile view. There, like that. Okay, so in the front view, they only show the very front face, and you'll see the lines behind them here it says 6 feet. So in America, we use feet and inches. So if he's 6 feet tall, he's about like maybe 183 or 184 centimeters tall. So he's fairly tall. And then down below, you can see 5 feet. So it says 5 feet there, and then 5 feet, 5.5 feet in the middle, and then 6 feet, which is how tall this man is, okay? Now, in the second view, you see his profile. So this way, they have a record of the criminal, and they can see what he looks like based on his front view and his side view or profile view, okay? Because it's important to know what they look like, what their hair is like, you know, the shape of their ears and their nose. All this kind of stuff is important information if the police need to know more about what the person looked like, okay? So this is what we call a mugshot. Okay, and a mugshot is just simply meaning that when a criminal is taken to the police station and they take a picture of their front and their side view, it's called a mugshot because often, like if you see in this picture, this guy, he doesn't look good. He looks pretty bad. He looks like maybe he'd been drinking a lot of alcohol. He probably got in a fight. He's got bruises under his eyes. He's got a bruise on his forehead here, and it doesn't look good at all. So when you get a mugshot, usually the person is a criminal and they don't look good. So we call it a mugshot. Okay, now let me show you this next example. Okay, now so here you have another criminal, and you also notice he's wearing orange clothes because in most prisons in America, they have to wear orange. Okay, that's the clothes color and the style that they wear when they're in prison. Now, the other thing that I want you to be able to do in this unit, besides be able to describe crimes and punishment, is also be able to describe the criminals, describe the people, okay? So whether it's a victim, criminal, or an eyewitness, we should be able to describe what they look like, okay? So if you're looking at this picture, there's certain things that we want to describe or mention about that criminal, okay? So some simple things that we might say, for example, he has short, dark brown hair. He has big eyes and they're blue colored. He has a beard and a mustache. He is white or Caucasian, meaning a white person. Okay, he's not like a Asian or Hispanic or African or anything like that. He is a white person. So Caucasian is what we say. And then you also notice that like on his ears and in between his eyes and on his lower lip, he has piercings. Okay, so he has installed piercings on his left ear. He has piercings there between his eyes or above his nose. And then he has some piercings down below on his lower lip. Okay, and this is important information because the police need to be able to identify and know what the criminal looks like quickly. So these are very important bits of information. Okay, then you also notice that on the right side of his face, okay, it's left as you guys are looking, but it's really actually on his right side of the face, he has tattoos. Now these tattoos are special. They're called tribal tattoos, okay, because they have that look of like being in a gang or, you know, like the mafia or the Yakuza, something like that, like in Japan. So we call them tribal tattoos. So these types of descriptions, like the tattoos, the piercings, the studs that he's wearing, these are all we call distinguishing features. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to the whiteboard. Okay, and based on what that guy looked like. So we have distinguishing features. Okay, now when we describe distinguishing features, distinguishing means like unique, different, not the same as other people. Okay, so for example, you know, many people wear glasses. Many people have short or long hair. Everybody has 2 eyes and 1 nose and 1 mouth and 2 ears, right? So that's all normal. But distinguishing features are features that are unique about a person and that other people don't typically have. Okay, so if a person has scars, yeah, tattoos, which we mentioned a moment ago, bruises or cuts, maybe they have an unusual hairstyle, or a birthmark. Okay, now a birthmark is a spot or mark that you have on your body when you're born. You some people have like the spot. Usually it's a brownish color, or it could be gray or bluish color, but it stays on your body for the rest of your life. So example, like on my right leg, I have a brown spot and it's been there since I was born. This is known as a birthmark. This would be a distinguishing feature on a person. The old Russian president, his name was Mikhail Gorbachev. He was almost bald. He had almost no hair, but on his forehead, he had this big, huge brown spot, and this was a birthmark. But that's very distinguishing. Most people don't have that on their forehead like that. So we can describe that because it's very unique. Okay. Oops. And some other things, you know, some people may have crooked teeth, you know, where their teeth are not straight. They might be cross-eyed. Where their eyes don't look straight ahead. Their eyes tend to move in and cross each other. We call that cross-eyed. These could be distinguishing features. Okay, and if there's anything else unusual, like they have a very large or long nose, or if they have a very big forehead, or their chin is very small or very large, these all could be distinguishing features, things that we can describe and look at, and then people can quickly tell if it's that person. Okay, so these all could be distinguishing features, and it could even include a person's clothes, their style and their clothes, or jewelry that they're wearing. Maybe they only have an earring on their left ear. We mentioned about piercings. Okay, because they might have like a stud above their eye, or they might have a nose ring, something like this. All these things would be piercings, and that could be a distinguishing feature also. Okay, so you want to make sure you you know that. Okay, and then I opened up one more file because this one will also help you in describing the appearance of a person. So whether they're a criminal or a victim or an eyewitness or somebody that we would need to describe, whether it's yourself or other people. Okay, here's some examples about how we would describe people. And I'm going to upload this file also, just so you can review this to help you in as far as knowing how to describe people. Okay. All right. So oftentimes we would ask questions to find out information about what a person looks like. So one question might be, what does he or she look like? Okay. And then when we ask that kind of question, we might say he's good looking, he's ugly, he's handsome, he's attractive, she is pretty, or she is beautiful, she is cute, right? She looks like a model. All these kind of things we could say, right? So whether we use he or she, and we can describe things like their height, their body shape, okay, and other distinguishing features. So I'll write some of those down on the whiteboard in just a moment, but take a look at some other questions we can ask. Okay, so we got, what does he or she look like? What does he or she like? Now in this case, we're trying to find out about their personality. Okay, now you don't need to worry about personality because we're not focusing on their personality. We're only focusing on what they look like. Okay, so don't worry about this one. Okay, what does he or she, what does he like? What does she like? So here we find out about someone's likes or dislikes. And then you don't need to worry about these ones. So let me go back up. The only one you'd want to worry about for questions here, whoops. Okay, so maybe I'll just do it this way. Okay, yeah, so just this one right here. What does he or she look like? So that's the one that's important for you guys. Okay, so we have their height, build, age, their looks, their skin type or complexion, their face shape, and their eyes. And then we also want to be able to describe their hair. So we could describe their hair, the length, thickness, texture, and style. Okay, so these kind of things we can also describe about a person's hair. And then finally, facial hair, whether they have a beard, a goatee, a mustache, sideburns, if they're unshaven, or clean shaven. Okay, and then clean shaven means, right here, clean shaven means they don't have any hair on their face at all. Okay, like they had shaved, and so their face looks very clean. We have stubble, where you have just a little bit of short hair that has grown, but it's not long, not like a beard or mustache. Okay, trimmed and then neatly trimmed. Okay, so these things you should be able to describe about a person. Okay, so let's go back up to height. So when you describe height, we can say that they're either tall, short, average height, medium height, fairly tall or fairly short. Okay, these kind of words we might use, these adjectives, to describe somebody's height. So typically we would ask questions like, how tall is this person? What is this person's height? Okay, then we have build, and build can describe a person's body shape. Okay, so we might say fat, thin, slim, skinny, plump, meaning a little fat, heavy, lanky. Lanky usually means very long and thin. Well built, they have a nice body and nice body shape. Okay, like a lot of sports athletes or models might be well built. Slightly built, meaning more fragile and weak looking and slim. They don't have much muscle or a strong body look. Muscular, okay, muscular would be like somebody like a bodybuilder, somebody who does a lot of weight training. They have many muscles on their body. So we say muscular. They have many muscles. They are muscular. Okay, then we got overweight, underweight, slender, and stocky. Okay, now stocky is somebody who is big, but they're not necessarily that fat. They have a big, strong frame, like a football player. And then we got age. So we want to consider, young, middle-aged, old. Okay, somebody who's a teenager or a baby or a young adult. Okay, somebody who's in their 50s, in their 30s, in their 20s, like that. We want to say these kind of things. So when we describe the age, it's good to mention, for instance, you could say early, mid, and late. Okay, like that. Okay, early, mid, and late. So, for example, if they're in their 20s, like most of you are, most of you are in your early 20s. Okay. Now I am 50 years old now. I'm in my early 50s. Okay, but somebody who might be, let's say, 25 would be in their mid 20s, and somebody who's like 27 would be in the late 20s. So we can describe this way when we talk about somebody's age in general. Okay. All right. So, all right, let's go down. Okay, under looks, we mentioned earlier about being pretty or beautiful or handsome or cute, good looking, gorgeous. We've got attractive, ugly, or ordinary looking. Okay, so these can describe what a person looks like. Okay, and then skin or complexion describes what their skin color is like. Fair skin, which is usually very white, very light. We have dark skin. Now, I've heard many Koreans say black skin, but in English, we don't usually describe them as having black skin. We say they have dark skin. Okay, you might have light skin. Your skin may be very white or pale. Okay, so if it's very white, we also say pale. We have tanned, where somebody who's maybe had a lot of sun, you know, when you go to the beach and you sit in the sun, you get tanned. They might have bright skin. They might be light brown. They may have smooth skin, glowing skin, dry or rough skin. Okay, and we can even describe things like if they have pimples or oily skin, all these kind of things. Okay, and the face. Now, we typically describe the shape of their face like oval or round or square, maybe wide. Okay, they may have a bright face. They may have some scars or wrinkles, freckles on their face. I mentioned earlier pimples as well. All right, and then the eyes. So we describe the shape and the color of their eyes typically, and the size of their eyes. So small or big. Maybe they have narrow eyes, bright eyes. Most Asians, we usually describe them as having narrow eyes. Okay, beautiful eyes. We can describe the color: blue, brown, black, gray, green, hazel. In some cases, they even have red eyes. Some people have red eyes with white hair. Almond-shaped eyes, bulging eyes, where the eyes kind of stick out a lot. Okay, so that's good for the eyes. And then hair. So you've got hair length, long, short, medium length, or shoulder length. So when we describe medium length or shoulder length, it means it comes down to the shoulder, but only that long. If it goes below the shoulder, then we usually consider it long hair. Okay. Hair thickness: thick, thin, bushy, scraggly, bald, receding. Receding means that the hairline above their forehead goes back quite a ways. Usually means that they're going to be going bald later. So like earlier, I showed you the picture of the man with the tattoos. He had a receding hairline. Hair texture. Okay, we've got straight, wavy, curly, spiky, buzzed, shaved, and neatly combed. And then hairstyles: ponytail, pigtail, bun, in a twist, a flip, layered, chopped, spiked, fringe, plaits, side, center, parting. So a parting is where you have a line in the middle or on the side, left or right side of your head, and then people neatly comb it that way. Okay, and then finally we had facial hair. Now, just so you know, I'll go back to the whiteboard here for a minute. Oops, hold on a second. Okay. Now I got to use the mouse here, but if I made the shape of a person's head here, I really can't do it well because I got to use the mouse. Okay, but anyways, just so you can get an idea. So here's his mouth and nose, his eyebrows, and his eyes. Now, actually, I usually draw a lot, but I'm going to do this quickly, and because I have to use the mouse, it's not going to look very good. But I just want to show you what a goatee is. So a person who has hair that comes down below and only down here, this is known as a goatee. So like the animal, the goat, if it's a male goat, a billy goat, they have lots of hair underneath their chin, and hence this is called a goatee. Okay, Often, often it does kind of form a point, but not always, depending on how they style it. And some goatees will even come up, they'll have some hair up above, coming up to almost below the mouth. Okay, but this is called a goatee. Okay, so here, let's go back to the PPT here. Okay, so right there, that's the goatee. Okay, we know a beard because the beard goes from the ears all the way down to the chin, and a mustache is above the mouth, and then sideburns. Okay, now sideburns, I could go ahead and put that in there too. Well, hold on a second. Go back to the whiteboard. Okay, let's insert sideburns. So here you have the person's ears, and sideburns come down below the ears, like so. So this man has sideburns. It's like what Elvis Presley, the singer, had. He had sideburns for many years, and in the old days, lots of men wore sideburns. Okay, so a mustache would go here. Okay, so there's an example of a mustache. Now, if he has no hair, no mustache, no goatee, no beard or anything, then we call them clean shaven. Okay, but if they do have a little bit of hairs coming out, these little hairs, this is called stubble. Okay, now the reason why I'm giving you all this description here is because if you had to describe the criminal, describe what the person looked like, then you'd want to give this kind of information, okay? And then a distinguishing feature, right? So let's say that he has a scar underneath his eye. Like he got cut there a long time ago by somebody with a knife. And this scar remains, and it's underneath his left eye. So this would be a distinguishing feature, a scar, okay? So these kind of things. All right, now, that's pretty good. Now, for now, that's all I would want you to have to worry about describing about a person. Okay, so when we meet next time, we're going to practice more about describing the person, as well as discuss about the kind of punishments needed and the kind of crimes that occur. Okay, so we'll kind of review and discuss that more in our next meeting. Okay, all right, so that'll be it for this video, and then we will discuss more in the next class. Okay, all right, thank you everybody, and we'll see you next time.